Welcome to another journey through literature. Today, we're taking a magnifying glass to a really pivotal moment in Robert Louis Stevenson's classic, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We're about to peel back the layers of chapter 3. You know, the one famously titled Dr. Jekyll Was Quite at Ease. And it's a chapter that, well, despite that seemingly calm title, is just absolutely bursting with hidden meaning. Crucial developments, too, that really set the stage for everything that follows. I mean, this is where the real mystery truly starts to unfold, wouldn't you say?
Well, absolutely. And before we dive into the supposed ease of Chapter 3, maybe we should just quickly, cast our minds back. Think about where we left off at the end of Chapter 2, Search for Mr. Hyde. You'll remember Mr. Utterson, our very rational, observant lawyer. He just discovered Dr. Jekyll's really quite peculiar will. Now, this document, it had been bothering Utterson for a while, hadn't it? And it basically said that if Jekyll died, or even just, poof, disappeared without explanation, all his possessions, his entire estate, everything, would go to this mysterious and frankly universally loathed character, Mr. Hyde. Now, for Utterson, a man of law, of order, this was just, well, a bombshell. It immediately made him think something deeply sinister was going on.
Exactly, a dark shadow hanging over his friend Jekyll. And Utterson, he wasn't the type to just sit back when he thought a friend was in trouble, was he? He actively went looking for answers. Driven by this really strong sense of loyalty to Jekyll, someone he'd known for years, admired even, we saw him literally staking out Jekyll's laboratory door, just waiting in the street, hoping to catch a glimpse of this Hyde fellow. And he did. He finally bumped into him. And Stevenson tells us Hyde's very presence just evoked this visceral, almost unexplainable loathing in everyone. It wasn't just that he looked unpleasant, it was deeper, like a primal revulsion coming off the man. So after that really disturbing encounter, Utterson, still trying to figure things out, he goes to visit their mutual friend, Dr. Lanyon, another respectable scientist. But instead of getting answers, he just found more questions, really. Lanyon, who was very much about traditional empirical science, he just completely condemned Jekyll's work, called it unscientific balderdash. And he revealed they hadn't really been friends for, what, a decade? All because Jekyll was getting into these really unorthodox experiments. So that last chapter, it left Utterson plagued by nightmares about this
Yep.
faceless Mr. Hyde. He was convinced Jekyll was being blackmailed, under some kind of awful influence. It was a proper cliffhanger. Left us feeling Utterson's worry and this sort of looming dread.
Exactly. That profound worry is the perfect launching point for Chapter 3. And that title, Dr. Jekyll, was quite at ease. I mean, it immediately strikes you as ironic, doesn't it? Especially given the tension and Utterson's fears from the end of Chapter 2. So the big question for us as we dig into this chapter is, how does this apparently calm chapter, named after Jekyll being supposedly at ease, actually manage to deepen the whole mystery? And maybe even more importantly, how does it push the core conflict of the novel forward in a big way? Because this is the chapter where we finally meet Dr. Jekyll properly. We come face to face with him. It forces this direct confrontation that promises to reveal something about his hidden life, or at least start chipping away at that respectable facade he's built. It's really masterful narrative design by Stevenson.
Okay, so let's unpack it. Let's jump right into that opening scene in chapter 3. It starts with Dr. Jekyll hosting a dinner party. Now, today, that might just sound like, having some friends over. But back then, in Victorian society, for a respected gentleman like Jekyll, these gatherings were huge, really important. They weren't just about being sociable. They were, like, essential for keeping up your public reputation, cementing your place in the community. You have to imagine it almost like a performance, right? Where every little detail, who was invited, what was served at all, said something about your status, your respectability.
You're absolutely right. That setting immediately puts up this very deliberate facade. Jekyll is playing the part, isn't he? The perfect Victorian gentleman. He's doing all the expected social things, surrounded by his peers. He looks like he's at the top of his game publicly. And this picture provides such a stark, really quite unsettling contrast to the dark secrets that Utterson is about to bring up. It immediately highlights one of the novel's biggest themes, that huge Victorian focus on appearance. And the pressure, the constant pressure to hide anything considered undignified, anything scandalous. You had to keep anything hinting at a less respectable life totally hidden. Your place in society depended on it. That social expectation, it's almost like another character in the story.
Yeah, it really is. And if you think about how Stevenson structures it, putting this really tense private conversation right after this very public conventional social event, It's brilliant. He's deliberately setting up this almost theatrical scene. We see the public Jekyll, the polite society version, right before the curtain lifts slightly on the private, anxious Jekyll talking to Utterson. It's like Stevenson is making us watch the performance first, see the calm facade, before we get even a hint of the turmoil underneath. And that clever contrast, it just builds this subtle tension right away. It foreshadows that massive gap between who Jekyll appears to be and who he might really be.
Indeed. It's a subtle way to deepen the mystery without giving the game away too early. So once the other guests have left, and that's a deliberate choice too, right? Setting the stage for a more intimate, potentially confrontational chat, Utterson stays behind. He's still carrying that weight, that deep concern for his friend. He's driven by loyalty, by this profound worry. And this is where the real core interaction of the chapter kicks off. It's a turning point for Utterson's investigation. As the dry lawyer, which is Stevenson's shorthand for him being sober, rational, maybe a bit reserved, Utterson gets straight to the point. No messing about. He immediately brings up Jekyll's strange will. And his tone, the book tells us, is both concerned and disapproving. That directness, it shows how honest he is, fundamentally, and how deeply uncomfortable he is with the will's terms. He just can't square the respectable Dr. Jekyll he knows with this monstrous Hyde figure name in the document. For Utterson, it just doesn't compute. It violates his sense of reason, of order.
And his motivation here is just so important, isn't it? He truly believes Jekyll is in serious danger. He's almost certainly being blackmailed by Hyde, in Utterson's mind. Utterson isn't just being nosy or looking for gossip. His main goal is simply to protect Jekyll's reputation, which was everything back then, and maybe even more, his personal safety. He sees Jekyll as a victim, basically, trapped by this sinister figure. It's that classic Victorian idea of male friendship, loyalty, protecting each other, especially when reputation was involved. He's willing to put his own discomfort aside to try and help his friend, even if that friend is being incredibly secretive about it all.
And that loyalty really does shine through. Now, thinking about the narrative structure, this whole conversation, this tense back and forth, it's shown almost entirely through Utterson's eyes, which means you, the listener, you get to experience his worry building up firsthand. And, crucially, you share his frustration with Jekyll being so maddeningly evasive. Stevenson is really controlling the information flow carefully here. We get just enough, through Utterson's pushing, to feel the seriousness of it all, that sense of doom creeping in, but without getting all the answers straight away. It keeps the suspense high and pulls us deeper into Utterson's quest for truth, makes us share his unease. We're right there alongside him, trying to fit the pieces together.
Now, Jekyll's reaction when Utterson confronts him directly, it's fascinating. Reveals so much about him, his psychology. He doesn't actually deal with Utterson's worries about the will or Hyde straight on. Instead, he tries to laugh it off, which is clearly a deflection, right? And he immediately changes the subject, brings up his difficult relationship with Dr. Lanyon, that decade-long strain. This isn't just a random detour, it's a very calculated move designed to steer Utterson away from the real, dangerous truth.
Oh, absolutely calculated. You see, Jekyll's initial tone described as irritated and defensive when Lanyon's name comes up. That tells you a nerve's been hit. And he dismisses Lanyon as a hide-bound pedant. That's quite a powerful metaphor, isn't it? Really cutting. He's painting Lanyon as rigid, narrow-minded, obsessed with conventional science rules. But by criticizing Lanyon's conservatism so sharply, Jekyll inadvertently shines a light on his own unconventional, unscientific pursuits. It strongly hints at the real nature of his experiments, why he and Lanyon fell out so dramatically. It shows Jekyll desperately trying to control the story, steer Utterson away from the actual terrifying secret, and deflect any suspicion. He wants Utterson to think Lanyon's the problem, stuck in the past, rather than focusing on Jekyll's own dangerous choices and the forbidden science he's dabbling in.
That quick diversion really hammers home that theme of secrecy. It's everywhere in this book. Jekyll is obviously not willing to reveal the truth about his, well, groundbreaking but morally questionable experiments. Or, more importantly, his deep, binding link to Hyde. And when he dismisses Lanyon's scientific heresies, it's not just about Lanyon being old-fashioned. It shows Jekyll thinks his own work goes beyond normal reason, maybe even touches on the supernatural, or at least the morally forbidden, which was a huge anxiety in the Victorian era, right?
Yeah.
With all the rapid scientific changes like Darwinism, people were both amazed and terrified. Science was pushing boundaries of what seemed acceptable, even moral. So Jekyll's deflection here suggests he's gone into territory that conventional science and Victorian society would absolutely condemn. As dangerous, maybe even blasphemous, he's essentially saying, my work is beyond Lanyon's understanding, and frankly, beyond yours too, Utterson.
But Utterson, being Utterson, that practical, loyal man, he's relentless. The text says he ruthlessly disregarded the fresh topic of Lanyon. He just brings the conversation right back to the will and back to the chilling figure of Mr. Hyde. That persistence, it really shows his loyalty to Jekyll and his determination to solve this disturbing puzzle. His firm belief that Jekyll is being blackmailed lets him push past Jekyll's attempts to distract him. Utterson's got a lawyer's mind, right? It demands logical answers, solutions. He won't be put off by evasiveness. He genuinely thinks that if Jekyll would just confide in him, he could actually help.
Yeah, he even offers his practical help, which says so much about him. He suggests Jekyll make a clean breast of this in confidence, and he truly believes he can get you out of it. It shows how deep his friendship runs, and also his very logical, almost legalistic way of thinking about problems. He honestly seems to think Jekyll's just tangled up in some messy situation with Hyde, like a bad contract or something, that he, Utterson, can fix with the right legal moves. It really underlines how much he still sees Jekyll as a victim here, not someone willingly involved.
And this intense back and forth, it's just a masterclass in building narrative tension. We see it all through Utterson's increasingly worried eyes. We witness Jekyll's deep internal struggle, his more and more desperate attempts to keep his secrets safe. And Stevenson's description of Jekyll's physical reaction here is so vivid, so telling. His large, handsome face grew pale to the very lips, and there came a blackness about his eyes. Now, that's not just saying he looked uncomfortable. It's like a direct window into the profound, almost physical agony that just mentioning Hyde causes Jekyll. It gives you, the listener, this really powerful visual of the inner turmoil Jekyll's going through, a clear sign that the at-ease facade is seriously cracking. That physical detail ramps up the mystery hugely, suggests a really deep, unhealthy link between the two men.
Despite that obvious discomfort, that clear internal battle, Jekyll finally responds. And it's with this crucial assertion, followed by a really intense plea. He tells Utterson he understands his concerns, but then, and this is huge claims, they are unfounded, just dismisses them. It's a massive statement, a direct denial of the very real danger Utterson is sensing. And even more significantly, he declares his complete trust in Utterson and then makes that chilling, almost unbelievable promise. I can get rid of Mr. Hyde at any time I want.
Yeah, that statement, it's just dripping with self-deception, isn't it? Or maybe it's a desperate last-ditch attempt to project a control that he probably already knows he doesn't really have anymore. He's clearly trying to calm Utterson down, soothe his friend's worries. But you could also argue he's trying to convince himself, too. And that promise, delivered so confidently, it just sets up, with perfect irony, the tragedy to come later in the book, where his control just spectacularly collapses, completely fails. His tone here, described as defensive and secretive, it perfectly hides that deep internal fight he's losing. He's trying to reassure Utterson, keep up the appearance of a rational, controlled man, while at the same time trying to protect the very secret that's eating him alive. It's this precarious balancing act. And you can see him losing his grip even now. It's like watching someone try to hold back an avalanche with their bare hands, really.
And that promise is just so central to the whole theme of secrecy and the novel's look at duality. Jekyll desperately needs to keep his double life hidden. And claiming he has ultimate control over Hyde, that's a key part of his elaborate deception. He needs Utterson to believe Hyde is just some controllable problem, a temporary thing he can just switch off whenever he wants, not, an essential, inseparable part of who he is. It also touches subtly on that idea of human duality, because Jekyll, at this point, maybe still genuinely thinks he can just separate himself from his evil side, that he can just ditch Hyde like an old coat when he's done with him. But his need to hide is all tied up with keeping his own respectable reputation safe in that very judgmental Victorian society, a society that would be absolutely horrified by his dark experiments. His whole social position, his life as Dr. Jekyll, depends on this secret staying buried. The consequences of being found out were terrifying back then.
Then the conversation takes an even stranger, more desperate turn. Jekyll's tone shifts, becomes distinctly pleading. He says he has a great interest on the poor Hyde. And then he earnestly asks Utterson to promise him something. To promise that he'll make sure Hyde gets his inheritance if Jekyll should no longer be here. Now, this isn't just about the money, surely. This desperate plea, it shows just how committed Jekyll is to Hyde continuing to exist. It points to a much deeper, more profound connection. A need for Hyde to survive, which, as you find out later, is completely tied up with Jekyll's own survival. It really shows the disturbing extent to which Jekyll is tangled up in his own dangerous experiment. He's spun this web himself, and now he's utterly trapped in it, and calling him poor Hyde, that's particularly odd, isn't it? It hints at this strange, maybe almost fatherly affection, or at least a deep, unavoidable bond that's gone way beyond just scientific curiosity.
Mm. And thinking about the narrative structure again, that request is such a critical moment in the rising action. It forces Utterson and us readers along with him to really question the nature of this relationship between Jekyll and Hyde even more. It pushes it way beyond simple blackmail now, doesn't it? Why on earth would Jekyll care so deeply, almost protectively, about Hyde's future, especially right after claiming he could get rid of him whenever he wanted? This request, it sets up a binding agreement, a solemn promise from Utterson, and that promise is going to have really serious, tragic consequences later in the story. It pulls Utterson even deeper into the dark core of this whole mystery. It's a promise Utterson can't just easily break, a commitment that's going to haunt him.
And Utterson, well, despite how much he clearly disapproves of Hyde and how utterly bizarre the whole request is, he reluctantly agrees. His deep-seated loyalty to Jekyll just wins out over his own discomfort and his suspicions. And that decision, it binds him even closer to Jekyll's dark secret. It foreshadows how he'll get more directly and ultimately horribly involved in uncovering the truth later on. He's no longer just an observer or a worried friend now. He's become an unwilling player in whatever morbid game Jekyll is involved in. You can almost feel the weight of that promise landing on Utterson's shoulders, a burden he takes on purely out of loyalty, even when his rational mind must be screaming against it. It's a real key moment where his moral compass gets tested by the strange demands of his friendship.
Right. And then this intense, quite revealing conversation wraps up with Jekyll's final request, that this must be the last time they talk about this matter. That's a pretty definitive command, isn't it? A desperate attempt to just shut down any more questions. And it powerfully reinforces that pervasive theme of secrecy that runs through the whole book. Jekyll wants this subject closed, buried, never brought up again. It shows just how desperately he wants to hide the truth of his link to Hyde, to protect his reputation and maybe his own sanity by just refusing to even talk about it. It's like he's demanding silence, hoping that if they don't speak of it, maybe it'll just cease to exist, which of course it won't.
So when we look back at Chapter 3, even with its deceptively calm title, Dr. Jekyll was quite at ease, it's clearly a massive turning point in the novel's rising action. This is where Utterson, our protagonist, gets pulled into direct, really unsettling contact with Jekyll's secret connection to Hyde. It moves way beyond rumor and guesswork into a direct, though evasive, confrontation. And that conversation, it just completely demolishes Utterson's initial, simpler theory of blackmail. It confirms Jekyll is deeply, disturbingly entangled with Hyde. It hints at a reality far more complex, far more terrifying than Utterson could have possibly imagined. This isn't just about Jekyll having a dodgy acquaintance. It's something fundamentally tangled up with Jekyll himself.
Absolutely. And Jekyll's claims that he can control Hyde, delivered with that weird mix of confidence and underlying desperation. And then his passionate, almost emotional plea for Hyde's inheritance. They work as incredibly powerful dramatic irony. Stevenson crafts these moments so expertly, they prepare you, the listener, for the inevitable collapse of Jekyll's carefully managed life that's coming later. They're promises that, even if Utterson doesn't fully get it yet, are absolutely fated to be broken, tragically broken.
And crucially, this chapter really pushes the main conflict of the novel forward significantly. It shifts the central mystery. It's no longer just, who is this Hyde guy and what power does he have over Jekyll?
Right.
It becomes the much deeper, more unsettling questions. What is Jekyll's actual secret? And why is he protecting Hyde so fiercely, even when it clearly causes him such distress, and as we'll see, ultimately risks his entire existence in Piersborough? That shift really deepens the intrigue. It pulls us much further into the psychological complexity of the story. It makes it clear the real danger isn't coming from some external blackmailer, but from deep within Jekyll himself.
And it's not just about the plot moving forward. This chapter also really deepens those core themes the novel explores. Things like the strength and sometimes the tragic limits of friendship, the damaging effects of secrecy, especially in a society obsessed with how things look on the surface, and the dangers of pursuing unconventional science, maybe reckless science, in a world that prizes conformity and reputation above almost everything else. Every one of those threads gets pulled tighter, twisted further in this seemingly quiet chapter. It's utterly essential, and it leaves you with this real gnawing sense of what terrible things might be coming next. So what have we really gathered from digging into Chapter 3? Well, this chapter, despite its ironic title, Dr. Jekyll was quite at ease, doesn't soothe us at all. Instead, it starts to peel back the layers of Jekyll's carefully maintained public image. We see Utterson's incredible loyalty, absolutely, but we also see this new, much more troubling side to Jekyll. He's not just a passive victim of blackmail, like Utterson thought. He's actually deeply complicit. A secretive figure caught in a trap he built himself, desperately trying to hold on to a secret that's clearly starting to consume him.
Right. The main conflict, Jekyll's hidden life, his connection to Hyde, isn't just moved along, it's made dramatically more complicated. Jekyll's promises of control, which sound confident but feel desperate underneath, and that intense plea he makes for Hyde's future, they leave us with this really powerful sense of foreboding. He claims he's at ease, but the truth, which we glimpse in his pale face, those dark eyes, is the complete opposite. The ease is just a mask, a final, failing effort to keep control over something that's already uncontrollable, a secret that's rapidly getting away from him.
So as we look ahead to the next chapter, we're left wondering, aren't we? What's the real price going to be for Jekyll keeping these secrets so tightly guarded? And how long can his claim of being able to control Hyde actually last, especially when faced with the increasingly violent, undeniable reality of his other self? The stage is definitely set now for an unraveling, and you just feel it's going to be both tragic and completely inevitable. Thank you for joining us on this literary journey. Hit subscribe and share to become part of our AI-human collaboration where every listener helps shape future episodes.